Okay, cool. It's 6:05. Thank you all for joining our Insight event this week. Again, two sessions. We tried to pit in within the space of 3 days as well, and the turnout seems to be going well. I still have a lot of people to admit into the waiting room, so that's good. And I can also see some returning faces as well. Again, these big four consulting sessions tend to do really well, and they're always detailed as well. So we really appreciate our guest speakers for coming on board and really giving us detailed conversations. And again, today we have Shade, a human capital consultant at Deloitte, who is going to be basically talking about the world of human capital consulting. And I think, the title that we kind of coined for this session is all about alternative HR careers. I think a lot of people, when you look at certain roles in corporate, you look at them at face value, but there's so much more to it. And I think that's the thing with like human capital consulting. A lot of people don't know that even exists, and it's an alternative to HR. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited today to kind of have Shade to delve into that industry and kind of talk about the different verticals and things that you can do in human capital consulting. With that being said, before I hand off to Shade, I would say if you guys can, share this on your LinkedIn, share this on your story for people to join, talk about the event, that would be much appreciated. Also, as well, I'll be circulating a feedback form. It's going to be in the chat as well after the session, just to kind of give your feedback about the session so that we can make it better for you guys. And then also there'll be a link for you to join Beyond Education as well, so you can be kept up to date with Insight sessions in the future and all the opportunities we have available. In the next coming weeks, I'm not going to lie to you guys, there's a lot of opportunities. So you guys better be plugged in and stay tuned for that. But with that being said, I will hand it over to Shade.
Thank you. So hi everyone, really looking forward to this conversation. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know when you can all see it.
Yep, I think we can see it now.
Okay, cool. So hi, my name is Shade Ojo. Like Stephen kindly introduced me, yes, I'm a human capital consultant. Background is in all things learning and development, which typically sits within the HR function of an organization. And I just wanted to do something different. I've been in learning for a while, ever since I graduated. So wanted to do something different, wanted to work in a consulting organization, and just see, what that experience is like. So who am I? Some fun facts about me. So I'm 28. Half Yoruba, half Igbo, born in London and raised in Essex. So I am an Essex girl, an Essex babe, like I always say. And some people might not know why I say half Igbo, half Yoruba, but in the Nigerian community, it's important to emphasize that because there's always, debates about tribes and all of this. So I like to just, add that in, that I'm, mixed tribes. I'm a Loughborough social psychology graduate, so I studied social psychology at Loughborough, which is slightly different to just psychology, pure psychology, which is a bit more scientific. I am very much a people person, so I wanted to do something still around psychology because I was very good at it at my sixth form, but I wanted to add the social element to it. So there's a lot more about like relationships with people, understanding people and human behaviors that comes under this. So that's why I studied social psychology. I am a food and Afrobeat lover. Absolutely love food. That is like my number one thing to do. So anything to do with food, I'm there. And I love Afrobeats. I hardly really listen to anything else. I am very much an Afrobeat person. I know my friends are just sometimes sick of me. They're like, Shade, it's not everyday Afrobeats, but Afrobeats makes me happy. I am a personal development enthusiast, so I love anything to do with learning. I love listening to audiobooks. I'm currently, what am I listening to? So I'm listening to How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yes, by Dale Carnegie, and it's amazing. I'm sure most of you have heard of the book.
That book has been sitting on my shelf for time. I'm not gonna lie, Shade. Like, and I don't know. Like, I can't be bothered.
You need to get into it. It's so good. It's so practical. And although it's an old book, so it was written years ago, but the elements and the principles in there are very, very much long lasting. So I would advise that you all hop on. If you're not much of a reader, like a physical reader like me, then get the audiobook. It's so good. You just listen to it like a podcast.
Got you.
I also love podcasts. So at the moment, I love listening to 7 Good Minutes. So it's a podcast that basically just talks about, it gives you like 7 minutes of motivation each morning, which sometimes I know can sound a bit cringe and cliche, but I like it. It's quite good. It's by Clyde Dennis. So I would recommend you check that out. I love learning new things and meeting new people. So I'm always kind of up for like a networking event, these type of events. I feel like you can learn something from everyone, anyone and everyone, no matter if they're junior, the junior place of work, no matter if they're senior. I feel like learning is for everyone and from everyone. So I absolutely love that. And I love meeting new people as well. I am a career and personal development mentor. I really value the idea of mentorship and pouring into others. I really enjoy that because I feel like it's a two-way thing. And one of the people that I'm currently mentoring is on the call. So hi, Celine. Yeah, I love mentoring. I feel like there's so much to learn, and it's, like I said, it's two-way. So you can very much learn from people and then pour into people as well. And this is how you grow. So I absolutely love that. And also, I am one of 3 of She's in a Pod. We are a podcast. We're a women's, we're for everyone, but we're mostly related to women. And we just love to share encouraging stories. We love to discuss all things that pertain to women. And yeah, we are actually coming to an end, sadly. But, you know, our podcast episodes are still very much there. We talk everything from home ownership to relationships to friendships, weddings, all of that good stuff. So yeah, be sure to check us out. All right, so on the agenda for today then, so I'll talk you very briefly through what is human capital consulting, what does the role look like, what do we do, why does it matter, the different areas of human capital. Now, I do have to caveat that this is specifically for Deloitte because human capital looks quite different depending on the type of organization you are in. So I will just emphasize what HC looks like at Deloitte specifically. Then my role, so what do we do day to day? What does it look like? What kind of activities do we do? What skills are needed for this role? Then I'll also take you through some case studies. So these are some real life examples of some clients that we worked with and the kind of solutions, the problems, the solutions, and then the outcomes. Of course, all client names are confidential so that you won't see any client names. That's very important in consulting. But you will, I'll give you the case studies there to read and digest. And then we'll just talk through the importance of human capital consulting. You know, why is it important? What do organizations gain from having human capital consultants working with them? And then a chance to ask questions. And I know, Stephen, you said that questions can be asked throughout. So please feel free to stop me at any time and ask any questions if you want clarity. I'll try and check the chat as well. I've got it open on one side.
Don't worry, I got you with the
Okay.
chat, to be honest. So it's all good. You just get on with your presentation.
Cool. So what's human capital consulting then? So essentially, in the most high level, simplistic way, we partner with organizations to help them make the most of their people. So it's everything to do with people. So this is in areas such as leadership, learning, talent, change, anything to do with employees of an organization and the problems that pertain to employees, we would come in and intervene. Employees are the most important asset of any organization. An organization cannot function without their employees. So human capital and really understanding people and organizations is really, really important. And then I thought it would be good as well to just differentiate between a traditional HR role and a HC consulting role. So with traditional HR roles, you would typically sit within the HR function of your organization. So for example, when I was at CGI, I sat within the HR team, but as a learning and development consultant. So that's like what a traditional HR role looks like. Whereas with a human capital consulting role, you would sit within a consulting team within an organization. So so at Deloitte, for example, I sit within human capital. The HR team and the learning team is completely separate to us. And they would serve Deloitte. So the HR team and the learning team and all of that serve Deloitte as their client, whereas my clients are external. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then Paul, the next one. So when you're a traditionalist in a HR role, typically you're a specialist within an area. So I would say I was, still am, a specialist within learning and development. Then you have some HR professionals that are specialists in reward, in compensation, in payroll, in employee disputes, in there's so many different areas of HR, but you kind of get what I mean. So when you're traditionalist, you would specialize within a certain area. That's the area you would work in. When you are a consultant, a human capital consultant, you can be a specialist, but you typically would do more general work. So your work would cut across many different areas. So you might not just be within learning. You might be thrown into reward or talent or D&I. For example, I've been on some diversity and inclusion projects. I've also, like at the moment, although my project is learning, I delve into the general kind of organizational development type work as well. So designing operating models for organizations, things like that. So that's a difference there.
Nice. Before you move on, could you define what operation model means? And the reason why I'm asking that is because I see this word thrown around a lot in consulting. I see it in their job descriptions, and I've just never actually understood what it actually means. So it'd be useful to kind of get it from the source's mouth.
Yeah, great question. And it's still something I'm learning myself. So when we talk about operating model, it's basically designing how a team works, how an organization works. So for example, with what we're doing at the moment, we are transforming the global shared services department of the organization. And that's basically a shared service department is basically all the outsourced learning work isn't done within the actual, well, it's done within the organization, but they kind of do all the administration for it.
Okay.
So when we say we are designing the operating model of the shared services team, we mean we are designing, okay, who is the most senior person? Who is the leader here? Who are the leaders' direct reports? You know, how many like hours do they work? How does it feed into the overarching decision making? You know, things like that. So it's essentially, when you say operating model, it's essentially how the organization works, essentially.
Yeah, how like people interact with each other and function, basically.
Exactly. So things like interaction models, what teams interact with which teams, things like governance as well.
Like sign-offs come into play and stuff like that as well. Like,
yeah, that's we probably won't. Well, yes, actually, yes, it does. That's probably when you get into the detail. But yes, that would include that. How many times different teams may have meetings to discuss key decisions for the organization or for the team. That's what we mean by operating model.
Makes sense.
Okay, cool. So the next one, traditional HR roles focus on mainly administrative HR activities. So things like maybe processing pay slips, writing offer letters, working in payroll. So kind of like the day-to-day like tasks. Whereas a HR, and actually that depends on your level of seniority within HR, because if you're like a HR director, then although you would get down to the more transactional activities, you would also kind of have a strategic element. But in a HC consulting role, all of our work is typically strategic. So what that means is that we partner directly with clients. We have client meetings to understand where the organization is going and how we can help get them there. We wouldn't kind of do the active, like sending out courses or signing off, courses. We would like design the courses and roll it out, design a rollout strategy, for example. So it's a bit more strategic in that sense. And then the last one, typically you would work with the same organization. So like I said, the HR team at Deloitte work for Deloitte. Whereas with HC Consultants, it's project-based. So yes, I am working for Deloitte, but I work with multiple clients. So I have to adjust my working style. I have to really understand how the client works. And every project almost feels like a new job because you're having to really get to know the client again and again. Yeah, so that's that. Right, I'll swiftly move on. So areas of human capital consulting at Deloitte. So I have to admit, I don't know a lot of these areas in detail. So if you have like specific questions about some of these areas, I'll send you the resources where you can really read more, because there are a lot of interesting areas here. So the first one, major programs. So from what I understand about this area, major programs, they basically would work on large scale transformation programs that happen across industries. So it could be something to do with trains, government programs, even things like COVID, like rolling out the test and trace, that kind of thing, major programs, and they would work on that. Then human-centered transformation. So this is all about putting humans at the heart of any transformation journey. So, for example, looking at an organization's culture, looking at the employee morale, how happy are the employees, working on those kind of projects. Then you've got my area, which is HR consulting. This is everything to do with designing the HR function. You're looking at how we can improve the efficiencies of a HR function within an organization. Looking at how we can save organizations money as well, if they're spending too much in certain areas. And yeah, so that kind of thing. Then human capital as a service. So this is all about empowering employees to really hone in on their abilities to work at their best, to work at their optimum level. So we would go into organizations, try to really understand, what's happening. We typically do discoveries and interviews and focus groups to find out, okay, what is the key issue here within organizations, and to get to the root of the issue. And then we would come in and provide our solutions. So that's kind of human capital as a service. So trying to bring out the best in employees. And then this final one, I'm not as close to, but I know it's to do with financial performance. Again, humans at the heart of it, but improving and working with organizations to improve their financial performance, using our expertise as well. So those are some of the areas. Like I said, it looks very different. Human capital looks very different at the other big four. So for example, at EY, I know that they call it people advisory services. And then at KPMG, they call it people and change, I believe. Not sure what it's called at PwC, but those are, just some of the areas that sit under human capital.
Yeah. Quick question I had. So I made like a joke on TikTok today when I was promoting this event, and I was saying that wherever there's money and there's people, consultants are always going to insert themselves there. And the reason why I said that is because when you look at this chart, right, there's so many different areas of the consulting firm, and I kind of wanted to understand, is it a thing where like the consulting firm, they're like, okay, there's demand for this service, you know what, we're gonna go and become experts in this service? Like, how do you guys just form the expertise straight away when, like, it seems like there's consulting for every single different thing? Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking surely someone can't be an expert in all these industries straight away. So how does that work?
That is a great question. And I used to think the same thing, because, so for example, we have a whole department now. It's bigger than a department, a whole like subsection of Deloitte called Deloitte Digital. This was only founded a few years ago.
I actually met them on Saturday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't have that before, but the organization realized that there was a need for technological solutions for digital, because they realized this is where the world is going. The world is becoming more digital. So they realized there was a need and a demand for it. So, and I think what was happening is that perhaps we weren't getting as many projects because clients were going with other organizations, more technology focused organizations. So a group of people came together and started Deloitte Digital. And I think in terms of like, how do they get all these experts? Hiring, putting job ads out. You create the budget to hire more people that sit within the area of expertise you're looking for, and you get on with it. You get on with the hiring. Some people might do retraining as well, like internally. If there are maybe projects where we really need people that have a certain skill set, you can go on some training. We have Deloitte University. I don't know as much about Deloitte University, but I know that they do courses. We do courses for people. So yeah, so it's really interesting. But yeah, that's essentially what it is. We have to be very market driven as consultants, because essentially we are providing a service for the market, for clients in the market. So the demand, you know, the way we operationalize, the way we start, we open up different sections of human capital consulting, for example, is based on demand from the market.
Got you. And there's one question here actually before you move on. I have a view on it, but I'll let you give your take. How does human capital consulting in Deloitte, EY, KPMG differ from HR consulting with HR consultant firms like Korn Ferry, for instance? So I don't know if you've heard of Korn Ferry.
I have actually. Our client actually uses them for leadership training. So Korn Ferry, so what you're asking basically is human capital, how does it differ from HR consulting? So I would say human capital is a bit broader. Like I said, at Deloitte, HR consulting sits under human capital. So I would say human capital looks at a wider scope of topics. That's what I would say. Of course, I don't know as much about Korn Ferry, but from the little I do know, I know that Korn Ferry specialize in leadership. So they have like a really good, I think it's like a leadership assessment that people use when they go on leadership training. So that's why I say that I think HR consulting is probably a bit more niche to certain HR areas like leadership, like learning, that kind of thing. And human capital is broader. That's what I say.
I think Korn Ferry as well. I've kind of come across them because obviously, in case you guys don't know, Beyond Education is predominantly like a recruitment firm. So now we work with a lot of companies to help them recruit. And I came across like one of our clients uses Korn Ferry. And I think what Korn Ferry does is they do like this embedded model where they basically are seconded into the firm and they help them recruit as well. So like hands-on recruitment and stuff like that. And it's called RPO. That's like usually what the model is called. I think they do like more hands-on stuff with companies. So the way I see it is maybe like human capital, you guys would be advising on certain things, and then Korn Ferry would probably be implementing some of those things basically.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on really. So I hope that answers your question, Abigail. All right, cool. Let's move on. So the role of a human capital consultant. So like I said, we partner with organizations to help solve their people-related issues. We develop strategies and practices to improve the efficiency of the HR learning department. And we help facilitate workforce change. This list is not exhaustive. We do a lot, but I just tried to condense it and make it as straightforward as I could. So that's essentially what we do in our role. I'll get down to the practicalities in the next section. In terms of skills and qualifications you need now, so HC consulting, because it's so broad and you learn on the job, I wouldn't even necessarily say you need a specific degree. Of course, getting into the Big Four as a graduate or as an experienced hire, like I did, you would need an undergrad degree. But a master's, I wouldn't say is required, or any other kind of training, I wouldn't say is required. I did a CIPD, and when I remember looking at the job spec, I know they said that it was desired for you to have a CIPD qualification. But honestly, you learn on the job. There are even some people at Deloitte, we started a school leavers program. And what that looks like is people that have left school, so left, I believe, sixth form, they come straight into Deloitte, do university with us, and then they're then given a role, and they're working alongside So qualifications, you know, Deloitte are becoming a lot more flexible now and want to just get as many people on board that are keen to learn. Then in terms of skills, oh my gosh, this list is, there are so many things I could think of. This list is non-exhaustive, but these are like the first ones that came to mind. As a consultant, you need to have really, really good communication skills. This is verbal communication and written communication, and especially written communication. Everything we present is on a slide deck, or is, you know, it has to be presented really clearly and well. That's how we sell, that's how we win new work, that's how we demonstrate our services. So communication is really, really important. Then relationship building skills. So this is all about building rapport with clients and teams. You really, really need this, especially when looking for new projects. So let's say you're on the bench. So when you're on the bench, that just means you're not on a project. In order to secure new projects, you need to know how to network. So really, really, you know, use the people that you know within the organization, express your interests, express that you're interested and available as well. Communicate your strengths, communicate your areas of expertise so that you can get on new projects. So relationship building is really, really important. Having, you know, senior people that will advocate for you at your talent reviews, you know, things like that. It's really important. And I could speak so much about this, but I don't want to belabor this point too much. You also need a strong commitment to personal learning and development. So, you know, what that looks like is you need to just constantly have an attitude of learning, and be curious, be really keen to learn, because as a consultant, your role is so varied. No 2 days are the same. So when you're working, you know, in industry, in an organization, typically you're doing similar things, you know, every day, depending on your role and team, of course, but typically your tasks are kind of the same. Whereas in consulting, oh my goodness, you could be organizing an event one day. You could be, I don't know, presenting using this fancy new software another day. There's just so much variety. So you've got to really be able to show curiosity and show that you're willing to learn. Stakeholder management. You will work with some very difficult clients. Clients that put pressure on you. Clients that want everything done like yesterday. And when I say that, as in they just want things done now, which is why you see a lot of consultants that work long hours. Thankfully, I try to set boundaries and log off at 5:30 daily, but on the occasional day where deadlines are coming up, you may have to work slightly longer. So stakeholder management is key. Learning how to speak to stakeholders, learning how to manage expectations, learning not to overpromise and underdeliver, because that's never good. And then teamwork. On projects, you're obviously going to be working with teams. Some people do solo projects, but that's rare. You're usually working with a team. So you need to be able to just work with people. Some people aren't as friendly. Some people don't speak as much. Some people are a bit too enthusiastic. Some people are can be micromanagerial. So you've got to really try and learn how to manage different personalities to make it work for you. And then time management, like I said, deadlines are like the bane of everyone's life in consulting, because clients want things done very quickly. So, you know, just really learning how to manage your time is important, especially because it's not just projects you work on as a consultant, and I'll come on to that. There are other like areas that they expect you as a consultant to get involved in. So time management is really, really key. And then being flexible, having agility, because things change. Clients change their mind, and at the end of the day, they are paying you for a service, so you have to satisfy your client, of course, within reason, but you are at their service. So you've got to be able to be agile and adapt, and show enthusiasm even when change makes you uncomfortable. Yeah. So that's skills and qualifications. Like I said, that's not exhaustive. There are so many more skills that you need, but these are like the main ones I would say to kind of get right. And actually, confidence. I forgot to add that, but confidence is very important. Because as a consultant, you are presented with a lot of scenarios that might be different to you. You might not be used to. It took me maybe a year to get confident and to really understand the role, because it was just so varied. I wasn't used to that. But being confident, especially in meetings, understanding why you are presenting your point of view and what your point of view is really, really important. So confidence, and that takes time. Okay, Stephen, I think there are a couple of questions. Do you want me to finish off these?
Yeah, I think if you finish off this day-to-day bit, and then yeah, we can kind of cover them.
Cool. So day-to-day activities then. So there's 3 main areas that a consultant would typically get involved in. So the first one is business development. Now, business development is all to do with bids. So bids are basically when we potentially are in the process of winning a new project with a client. So we've done networking, we've met with this client, they said that they want this, and we say, okay, as Deloitte, we can deliver that. We now need to present a case, which is in the form of a bid, where we show them why they should choose us, what we can deliver, we show them our expertise, and we talk them through this. So business development is something that everyone is expected to get involved in, because it shows your commitment to the organization. Bids can be quite long and quite pressured. Sometimes the turnaround is like 2 days. And sometimes you're expected to do this alongside your projects. But typically when you're on the bench, that's what you will be doing. You will be doing business development work, bid work, collating information together to try and win us some new projects. The next, practice development. So this one is quite fun. This is just some work where you are just showing your commitment to improving like your organization as a whole, where it's all internal and it's all voluntary. So for example, within the team I'm in, oh, my screen's gone black. Okay, within the team I'm in, we wanted to organize some leadership sessions so that leaders can become a bit more visible to junior employees, because what we realized is that a lot of people don't actually know who the leaders are within our team, and leader visibility is very important, especially when you're, going for promotion. You want the leaders to know you. So I just took the initiative to lead the team that sets up these sessions, and that's just some practice development work I do on the side. So I add that to my case, I add that to my portfolio, because it shows that I can manage people. I manage a team of 3, and it shows that I have good people skills. So yeah, so that's just, some of the things you can get involved in. And typically you find out about these opportunities through email, through talking to people. But that's not really expected of you to do, but it's good for your case to show you're well-rounded. And then of course, projects, like I've described. So projects is the most important part of being a consultant. You need to always show, if you're not on a project, you need to kind of prove why. Almost, it can be quite quite challenging on that time, especially if you're on the bench for quite long. So projects are a very, very important and integral part of our role as consultants. You need to spend the majority of the time on clients, because that's how your company gets paid. That's how Deloitte gets paid.
Got you. Okay, cool. A few questions have kind of rolled in.
Okay.
I'm gonna kind of group them. So a lot of them was more so around like the bench, for example. So someone said, are new projects not assigned to you automatically? Like, how long are you usually on the bench for?
Okay, great question. So it depends. When I first joined, I got assigned to a project literally the next week, and I hated it. Because it depends on whether projects really need people. Typically, when you are new to the organization, you will just kind of get dragged into any project. You don't really have a say. So that happens. Then how long are people typically on the bench? So when I've been on the bench, it could be anywhere between a month, three weeks, 2 weeks. Some people on the bench for like 5 months, 6 months. So it
Wow.
really depends. Yeah.
And is that
Long
like that's not their fault, is it?
That's the thing. It's not their fault because a lot of the time it's to do with the demand in your area. It is to do with project availability. Sometimes, like for me, when I was on the bench, my project kept getting pushing back, pushed back, pushed back, pushed back, and that's just because it hadn't been agreed, it hadn't been signed off with the client. So there's nothing you can do about that. Whereas there are some people that are maybe a bit too laid back when they're on the bench and they're not taking the initiative, like I said right at the beginning, to network.
And
It's
be proactive.
because
You
you've
kind of
got
have
to
to
be
win yourself
proactive.
to be on projects, kind of thing.
Yeah. So you've got to be proactive. You've got to be proactive. If there's a project you really want to go on, and let's say it's starting in like 3 months,
Mm.
um, I would say try and find something in the meantime, or just make sure you're getting involved in the other work, like I said, like bids, because that shows that you are contributing to your organization, to Deloitte, winning new work.
Got you.
So yeah, hope that answers the
That makes
question.
sense. Someone said, so if you have no friends at the company and you're on the bench, like, damn, that must be really stressful.
For a lot of people love being on the bench when it's not too long though, because less pressure, I guess. And it's a time for you to make friends. That's the time where you should be putting meetings in people's diaries in your team. Just quick catch ups to get to know people, say hi, tell them where you sit. It's all networking. And when you're on the bench, you just have more time because you're
Mm-hmm.
not really doing much.
Yeah.
So if you don't have friends, it's time to make friends during that
Got
time.
you. Got you. Someone asked about what the work-life balance is, but I think you kind of clarified that. Typically set
Yeah.
boundaries so you finish at five,
Yeah.
or sometimes you
Yeah.
past that.
Exactly. So it just depends on timelines. So like we have a deadline coming up next week, and I think we're good. So we probably won't have to do some late nights. But if there are like changes in the client needs, for example, at the very last minute, that can like that can just kind of disrupt your timeline, and you may have to work a bit longer. But it doesn't really happen in human capital consulting, I must say.
Mhm.
Happens in other areas of the firm, but from what I've seen, we would typically get a good work-life balance. But the more senior you go, your workload increases. So again, time management comes in. But I
Mm.
try to set boundaries.
Of course, boundaries are important. Just one final question. I'm conscious of time. As a graduate, what does the typical progression route for this type of role look like?
Okay, yeah. So as a graduate, you typically come in as an analyst. Most people on an analyst program for about 2 years on average, could be less, could be more, not really more there. Then after an analyst, you become a consultant. Consultant, you can be a consultant anywhere between a year and 3 years. Typically after that, you've gained enough skills to kind of go for the senior consultant role. Um, then you would go for senior consultant, then manager, then senior manager, then director, then partner. We have talent reviews once a year. So this is where you would put your case forward. Well, this is where your performance is, of course, spoken about, reviewed, and at this point is when you would put your case forward for promotion. Then they would do due diligence. They would talk to people that you've worked with, so managers on projects and all of that, to see what you're really like to work with and whether you're ready for the next step up. So promotions aren't a given. You have to make it known to your manager, we call them people leaders, that you want to go for a promotion. So that's typically what a graduate a graduate kind of route up would look like, and progression. What I would say, the one thing I do like about working in a consulting firm is that it's very clear what that progression is. Whereas I know that when I was in industry, you don't really get promoted unless, well, in my organizations, unless someone leaves that role or unless a role becomes available.
Mm.
But in this kind of organization, it's kind of expected for you to step up on the ladder.
Got you, got you. Conscious of time, I'll leave the questions to the end. I'm conscious that we still have a lot to kind of get through as well. So
Yeah. I'll race through. So, okay, this is actually the final bit. So,
Okay.
so some examples of client projects. So they're quite detailed, so I'm not going to go through everything. I'm really just going to summarize. But this is quite good because it gives an insight into the actual work that we do. Some of the words might not be as clear because even for me, I'm just like, what does this mean? What does that mean? But it gives you an idea of the type of work that we do. So this case study was for a multinational pharmaceutical company that we worked with. Now, the challenge here that the client had was that learning was very decentralized. So that means that it was just happening within so many different teams. There was no organization. There was no central team that focused on learning and development activities. So there was no strategy. It was very fragmented. They had over 6,000 learning vendors, meaning that they were duplicating costs because I'm sure a lot of those vendors were providing the same thing, decentralized processes. So what we did a current state assessment. Now, a current state assessment is typically what we do at the beginning of most projects. So we would go in, request loads of data, do loads of analysis to understand, okay, what is going on in the organization? How many vendors do they have? How many learning teams do they have? What type of learning are they providing? We do interviews with senior people within the team. We run focus groups as well with actual people within that organization, just so we can find out the real issue and get to the bottom of it. We then usually provide recommendations. So that's the second bullet point here. Recommendations where we suggest what they can do to improve. So recommendations with defined opportunities, we present business cases, we developed a future vision and strategy for the learning, for the client's learning function. And then we did all the other stuff as well. So the solution, once we had implemented those recommendations, the solution was that we launched a global single LMS. So what that just means is that a learning management system, instead of there being so many different platforms where learning could be requested for or could be done, we launched just one. So that just made it a lot more simple, saved the organization money. And then we did, so through the transformation of the organization, a new learning organization was designed to harmonize processes, roles and responsibilities were defined for clearer accountability. So these are just, some of the solutions that took place. And then the outcome of this was that it resulted in a new way of learning and a strategy, and we were able to elevate the quality of their learning at the organization. So I think this project was maybe like a year. But yeah, so this is a real life example of some work that we did.
Nice. And quick one, how long would a project like that last for?
So about a year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Some though are like quick fire sprint. So like 12 weeks, 4 weeks even. I think the next one that I'm going to show, so this one was 4 weeks, but we'll get onto that last. So it depends on the budget of the client. It depends on how much they want us to deliver. And it just depends on how big and how complex the scenario is. So it can vary. All of my projects have typically been about 3 months.
Okay.
So that's kind of gives you a rough idea. So this one was a diversity and inclusion review. So with this client, they were a healthcare organization, and they wanted to just make measurable improvements to improve the experiences of diverse people groups within the organization. So what we did, again, the current state analysis. So we gathered all the data that we needed. So this could be policies. What's your maternity policy like? We want to see your pay grades, things like that. So, and that helps because then we're able to really understand the ins and outs of the organization and see what the data is showing us in order to provide solutions. Then we cleanse the data, we drew out all the learning insights from it. We then worked with stakeholders to validate the data. So we wouldn't typically just kind of take the data, then make our solutions just like that, we would need to validate that data to ensure that, okay, is this accurate? Does this align with what you're expecting? And then the outcome was that we gave them a D&I maturity rating. So that's basically just a scale that we use to inform the organization of how mature they are on this like diversity scale that's been created alongside many different organizations. So it's almost like a benchmark. We gave them recommendations for how they can improve their D&I program. And then we did D&I insight sessions as well. So that's kind of an idea. You kind of get the gist of the kind of projects we do. This is mainly within HR consulting. In the other areas, the projects can be very, very different. Some projects, they implement technology solutions. Some projects they run leadership trainings for clients. Some are there to improve the culture of an organization. So it's very, very diverse. This one is about financial capability. So for this project, not as close to it, but we did Deloitte, we did a future finance capability framework. So essentially what we did is designed what the capability of finance professionals within this organization needed to have. We designed that framework.
Okay.
This was then rolled out so that they could ensure that all their finance individuals had the right capabilities to run and work in that function.
So kind of like the relevant competencies and qualifications they need to carry out their role.
Exactly. Career pathways, all of that, which is all there. And we do a lot of that. So this was quite a short project. We do a lot of that, designing learning pathways, competencies, like you said, based on what the organization needs. So we'll do like a discovery, find out, what we might even do learning needs analysis. What are the gaps within the organization? Where do we need people to hone in on those gaps, and to fill those gaps, and then do from there.
Nice. I have a cheeky question to ask, Shade.
Sure.
So you mentioned that the shortest that there could be like projects as short as 4 weeks and then projects as long as a year. Obviously, we know consulting firms, they're like making a killing, right? What is the average deal size of some? So like, if you could disclose, what does that look like? What are you guys charging clients, like ballpark figures, to deliver your shortest project and then your longest project, just for us to kind of get an understanding?
Yeah. So in terms of what we charge clients, I don't think I can say.
Yeah, not disclose. Yeah, you don't have to disclose either, but just like generally
But
speaking, in the consulting industry, what are you charging clients to basically deliver like pieces of work?
Yeah. So I mean, I can say like what clients are paying, and that might give you an idea. So like I know there are some projects that have been as little as maybe £50,000. And then you could go up to like projects that are like 350,000.
Wow.
And then some projects that are like maybe like year plus, a year project or a year plus could go into the millions. But that's like a really solid, like that means we have secured the bag.
Wow.
So typically the average project is around the 6-figure mark.
Okay.
So about 350, 450. Yeah.
Got you. Now noted.
Yeah, so that's what I would say there. And then I think the final bit, was just around the importance of human capital consulting. So why is HC consulting important? Why do organizations pay us so much money? We help organizations remain competitive. So a lot of organizations, their main aim is, I want to remain competitive amongst my peers. I want to be the best of the best in my industry. So we help them do that. We have teams that all they do is research. They find out about all these organizations, and they do loads and loads of research. And we have that expertise within us at Deloitte. So we are able to provide solutions and recommendations based on that expert research that this team has done. So we have access to that. We help organizations save money. We help them effectively manage their investments in their employees. We help improve organizations. We help improve their functions. We help improve their productivity, because no organization wants to be unproductive, so we help them to go in look at, okay, what is making you to, what's causing unproductivity in the organization, and how can we help? What's the solution there? Like I mentioned before, we provide expert-led solutions. So we have experts that know very, very much about the market and about the industries and are able to provide those solutions to clients. We solve people-related problems. Like I said, employees are the most important asset to any organization. So solving people-related problems is important. If not, people will just leave. And then how will your organization, maintain itself? And then we help to keep employees satisfied in their roles. So when we have, projects like D&I projects, I love that, because D&I is all about the people. How can you include people? How can your organization be inclusive? Improving organizational culture, things like that. So those are just, again, all these lists aren't exhaustive. There's so much more. But yeah, this is the importance of human capital consulting. We play an important role in different organizations.
No, yeah, of course. And ultimately, like humans are literally behind businesses, right? Like human
Absolutely,
resources. It's important to kind of
absolutely.
have that structure in place. And I think sometimes it's taken for granted how important human resources is in an organization, from onboarding within an organization, upskilling, moving about, all that kind
Yes,
of stuff. There's so many elements to it. And
exactly.
that is why there's literally a market for human capital consulting, because if you
Yep.
need that people function to run really well.
Mhm.
Honestly, great presentation, Shadi. Like it's been really,
Thank
really
you.
comprehensive. We have like a lot of questions that have rolled in kind of thing, and I'm conscious that we have 5 minutes, so I'm gonna be picking out the ones that I think are the most important, and maybe if we can answer them in a brief fashion as well. So someone asked, what is the interview process like for a human capital consultant? Are there any
Okay.
assessments involved?
Okay, so my interview process was a screening call. So to be honest, I was very eager to get the role. So I reached out to one of the directors on LinkedIn that I knew was within the team. He surprisingly responded. Set up a call with him to just ask him, okay, what's the role like? I'm really interested, etc. So that's usually, that comes at the end of the interview process, usually where you speak to like a director or partner.
Mm.
Then typically once they're happy with your screening call, which would take place with usually a recruiter, just to find out if you're the right person. They might just ask a bit about your CV, etc.
Yeah.
Then you would do a case study. So I had to do a case study. They sent me this case study. I had, I think, a day to like read it, and then you do it under time conditions. So you have to like answer it, put it into a presentation. Presentation doesn't have to be fancy, and then you will have another call where you present back your responses to that case study. Can't remember the details of the case study now, but I know it was to do with like implementing something to do with like learning or talent, and I just had to provide my solutions and back it up. Um, and then, like I mentioned, the final stage would typically just be a conversation once you get through the case study stage, conversation with a senior director or partner who just want to kind of get a feel for you and find out if you're the right person based on your personality. That's an experienced hire. For a graduate, um, I think the process is quite different. I know you have to go through like assessment tests, and do all these psychometric tests. That's that. So slightly different for a graduate process.
Got you, got you. Someone said, is there a way we can apply for this role right now as a graduate? So I believe they're probably asking like applying for the management consultant role, and I'll just go out on a limb and say no, because you very much have to kind of work your way up, kind of thing, from analyst and
Yeah. So graduate, if you're a fresh graduate, you would typically go through the graduate scheme. But if you have had experience, maybe 1 or 2 years experience, you can try and just go for like my role. So the experience, and that would be through the experienced hire route as a human capital management consultant. So yeah, I
got
can,
you.
if they connect with me, I can like send some roles and just find out a bit more about their situation
Okay
and
then.
then
Cool.
advise better.
All right, we'll get Shadi has given us the go ahead to connect with her, guys. So
Yeah,
Shadi, if
that's
you
fine.
get inundated with requests, I'm sorry. Do you think having completed your CIPD, it's helped you in your current role?
Um, if I'm honest, not really.
Mm.
when you're doing these studies, a lot of the time, if I'm being real, let's be real, we just cram to pass the assessments, the exams. I can't remember half of the stuff I did on it, but it just looks good on my CV. And like I said, with this role, you learn on the job because it's so varied. I don't think anyone can teach you consulting. They can teach you to have consultative skills and transferable skills, but the actual day to day, I just don't think you can be taught. So yeah, I say you very much learn on the job.
Yeah, I think a lot of these like qualifications are pretty much just to kind of show that yes, you've done a bit of work on the side kind of thing. And sometimes it kind of filters you out from people that may not have it. But as far
Yeah,
as actually using it in the role, it's really the work that you're doing that you're gonna learn from as opposed to the actual
yeah,
textbook stuff you're learning, to be honest.
exactly.
A few more other questions here. So, Shade, is there a particular industry you work in? And if so, can you network to work on projects in different industries? So you
Oh,
kind
great
of mentioned
question.
like different like healthcare and stuff like that. Is there particular
Yeah.
ones you work on?
Yes, so actually that's a very good question because when you join Deloitte, they usually align you to an industry. So they'll ask you, they'll look at your background, and they'll say financial services, public sector, or private sector. I'm
Mm,
in private sector, and that's just because I've worked at Amazon, I've worked at um, CGI, and they were all private sector industries. So
mhm.
that's just what I just knew more about. So
Okay.
I work in private sector. I have worked on a couple of public sector projects and financial services,
Mm,
um, but you would typically be aligned to a certain industry. When you are more junior, though, you kind of just go where the business is. Like if they need you on a public sector project, you will just be asked to go there. But so you do get opportunities to work across industry and find out which ones align to you. But yes, you are aligned to a specific industry.
got you. I have like two more that I think are really important. Can you speak on salary banding at different levels of consulting? And this person is particularly worried about taking a step backwards money-wise because they've advanced so much
Mm,
in their HR traditional role, but now they're thinking of going into consulting, HR consulting. So how do you kind of navigate that? Like, what's the salary ranges if you could
yeah.
like, to give people a bit of
Uh,
insight?
Now, salary at Big Four and Deloitte is something that's just kept, and I don't love that culture either. It's kept so hush hush. Um, but from the little I know, I believe graduates start at maybe. Please don't take what I'm saying as like gospel because, like I said, this
Yeah,
is from
just
the little I
ranges.
know,
Yeah.
and this is mainly from searching even on Glassdoor and stuff. So I think the graduates maybe start at maybe 38, 40.
Mm,
I think. Then consultants, maybe like 46,000 to perhaps late 50s. And then senior consultants, I don't know where they start from, but I know an SC that's on
mhm,
60,000. Now I don't know, and this is the difficult thing. I don't know if that's the top end, the middle, or the low end, but it
mhm.
just kind of gives you a rough idea. Then you have senior managers. Gosh, that one I think is quite because you have different levels of senior managers. I think with bonuses that can go up to six figures.
Mm, mm, mm,
Sorry, I skipped manager. Let's step back. Manager would be from about I think maybe 70s to maybe 80s, and then
mm,
senior manager is quite broad, and I believe with bonuses can go up to six figures.
got you.
So
That's
So if
kind of
you're
like
looking at the
the
consultant, yeah. So if you're looking at the like consultant-ish role, it would be, I don't think you would get more than, oh, it's so hard to say. Maybe 60 might be the top end.
got you.
Please check on Glassdoor because people do give honest, anonymous reviews on salaries.
hmm
And
One
I know Deloitte is one of the better paid ones, sorry. But yeah,
Okay, got you,
what
got
to
you.
say.
One thing I've kind of noticed about Big Four is that the salaries is not like it's not uniform, it's not like in unison across the board.
No,
It's kind of like everybody kind of goes in negotiating like their own
yep,
thing. So that's why it's a bit hard and it's not standardized for you to kind of know that oh,
yes,
you work in Big Four, this way
yeah,
it's like. And I've kind of noticed in consulting, generally speaking, that's kind of how it is as well. It's kind of like negotiate your own thing type thing. Like, so,
Because you'll be surprised that someone that's coming on the same grade as you is getting paid more.
yeah, which is
So you always negotiate, always negotiate. Glassdoor is really good because it gives you an idea of what you should expect, high end, top end. But when you're actually within the organization, they're very hush hush about it. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah.
So
Final question, which I think is like a good one to kind of wrap it up and give everyone an indicator of how to get into this industry. How can someone work their way up from a HR assistant role, for example, into
oh,
HR consulting? What's the most appropriate role to apply for? So to give a bit of context into your situation, you were a learning and development business partner at Amazon, and then you came in as a consultant, right?
yeah, yeah.
What's your advice as
Um,
an HR assistant?
so I think it's a lot to do with transferable skills.
Mhm.
As a HR assistant, it would be good to know what you're doing and what skills you have that can lend you well to becoming a consultant. Um, title doesn't title doesn't matter as much. I think it's more about skills and the skills you have, you know.
Mm,
Um, that's what I would say, but I would need to know a bit more, like specifically about like the person's situation, what they do, and all of that. I mean, if the HR assistant role is quite junior within your organization, I would say try and maybe look for something that gives you exposure to a bit more, because as a consultant, you're going to do a lot more varied tasks. So if as a HR assistant, what you're doing is quite like minimalistic, you're not really getting involved in as many tasks as you would like to, then I would say perhaps look for a role initially that you can get. Same with HR administrator, because
mm,
I've been a HR administrator and I know that I wasn't doing as much that I was doing. My roles were quite transactional and just very, I didn't really use my, you know what I mean? I didn't get involved in as many kind of strategic activities I would have liked to, like designing, things and stuff like that. So I would say try and maybe get a role that will give you the opportunity to work on a wider range of tasks within your organization.
got you, got you.
Yeah.
And then I think there was one final question, sorry, one final question, and we're gonna leave you, I promise.
Fine, no, that's fine.
What opportunity is out there for someone with an MSc in HR? So again, I think this one is kind of speaking to again, is education really that important if you're trying to navigate the industry per se?
Mm. So do you mean within consulting?
Yeah, within consulting. So if you had an MSc, like how would you kind of get into HR consulting? Does that give you an advantage or a leg up?
Well, a lot of people that I work with have masters in HR, in
Okay,
HR resource management. So I think that would lend you well.
okay
I think that would
then.
lend you well, absolutely. Yeah. And you can, I feel like with a master's in HR, you can do anything really. Like I said, these days, roles, you don't really need a specific degree to go into a specific role. But if
Mm.
you want to come into HC consulting or consulting in general, absolutely your MSc is going to lend you well.
Yeah, but would you say it's worth someone going out of their way to go and do an MSc just to get
Oh
in?
no, I
Okay,
didn't. I was contemplating it, and then I just thought, "Ugh, do I really need this? No.
yeah.
If you can get an organization to sponsor you and you don't have to pay yourself, then okay, fair enough.
Mm.
But people get the roles all the time without having a master's.
Got you, got you. Nah, thank you so much, Shade. Honestly, this was really, really good. Everybody stayed till the end of the session,
Wow.
which is usually a good sign because people really wanted to know about it.
Yeah.
As always, guys, this deck is going to be available on our website with the recording as well, so you can kind of access it in your own time, follow it at your own pace and stuff like that. And yeah, honestly, so much. Thank you so much, Shade. I'm going to be pestering Shade to share any resources she has that's helped her navigate her HR career as well. We'll anonymize it and put it on the site as we always do, guys. And yeah, be sure to tune in to our website for more insight events. I believe we have one next week. That one is about earning six figures in corporate. Really, really exciting. So
Right.
that should be a good one as well. And honestly, thank you guys so much for turning up. I'm going to be circulating a feedback form after as well. Please put as much detail into what you want to see next, the feedback for these sessions, and how we can make it better. But with that being said, I'll leave everyone to it and have a good evening,
One
guys.
more thing, Stephen, sorry. My
Go.
message that she can't message me on LinkedIn, which is really weird. If anyone's trying to message me and you can't, send me an email. I'll put my email here, and then I will check my settings, because that's really weird.
I
Yeah,
think
and
it's
what I'll
when
do,
you don't accept you have to accept the request first.
I think you have to accept the
Oh,
request, and then that works.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that. I'll do that then.
All right, then. Perfect. Sounds goody. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.